Do you feel that we're living through, despite the disasters that we're witnessing in Gaza, do you think we're living through an era or a period of hope for the Muslim Ummah?
If I had told you at the time of P.W. Botha in the 80s that South African men and women, lawyers, will be out taking on Israel in defense of Palestine, you would think that I was absolutely hallucinating. But it did happen. In our lifetime, we not only saw freedom in South Africa, but we saw South Africa try to defend the right of Palestinians for that freedom. And that, for me, is what gives me hope. As Martin Luther King says, the arc of freedom is long, but it does bend towards freedom. But at the same time, 75 years on, we are still here. The struggle continues for our humanity. The world now sees Israel the way we have seen it for the last 75 years.
One of the most unique characteristics of this ummah is the fact that it is very resilient. I remember reading for a great historian, his name is Ibn al-Athir, in his magnificent book, Al-Kamil fi al-Tarikh. He died in the year 630. At the end of his book, when he was describing the events of 632 he passed away, but 630 was the last year in his chronology. When he was describing 630, it was the Mughals invading the eastern part of the Islamic world and committing unbelievable atrocities against Muslims and Islam. So when he wrote about that, he said, I could not write for a long time about the events of this year, but my students asked me to write down because I am a witness of history. But I was thinking to myself, how could I declare the end of Islam and Muslims? Because he thought that this is the end of Islam and the Ummah because of the invasion of the Mughals and the genocides committed from the Mughals. And then he described the events of that day. He passed away 632, and they killed almost 1 million people and destroyed the capital of the Khilafah, and they destroyed after that Damascus, and they did a lot of harm. He didn't even see that. Imagine. So most of his generation of historians saw that as the end of the Ummah. But not very much later, this Ummah recovered and defeated the Mughals after 2 years, actually, and we resumed our march towards the future. If you believe that this Quran is the book until the end of the last book to humanity, until the end of time, it means the Ummah that will carry this book will survive with it in order to connect the text to reality. I think the concept of hope is similar to the concept of Tawheed in Islam. If you have the concept of faith, Iman, you have the concept of hope. And if you don't have the concept of Iman, you have the concept of despair. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He actually combined both of them together. That the yes, which is to despair from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it means that you do not have faith.
Israel has exposed itself for what it is, for the whole world to see, for the world to be stunned by what is happening. The second thing is that there is amazing voices coming out, Jewish voices of historians who went through the whole business of Israel and came out the other side and saw this thing for what it was. And you've got the Orthodox Jews, those wonderful Jews who have remained God-centered and who have always condemned this artificial thing. And you've got young Jews who are awakening to what is happening. And you've got people of every kind looking at it. And most important of all, you've got the resonance of all those worlds that were colonized for a while or had to suffer settler colonization. You've got all those people of the world who suffered the European grandiose transformation of the world. You've got those people being reminded of what happened to them. So the whole colonial horror that took place over the last 200, 300, 400 years, from South America through Africa and Asia is coming back again into people's imaginations and knowledge. The world can never be the same after this. This is a moment of such crisis for the West.
We read Surah Al-Fil where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately destroyed Abraha when he was seeking to attack the Kaaba.
Yeah.
Supernatural ways, and there wasn't a Muslim in front of the Kaaba. But then we also see 400 years later, less than 400 years later, a 24-year-old kid destroyed the Kaaba and killed 20,000 Hujjaj and stole the black stone and shouted out in front of the Kaaba, in front of everyone, where are the stones?
Yes.
Where are the birds?
Right.
And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spared him until Allah Azza wa Jal killed him and then brought the Ummah back after that. If I was one of those 20,000 Hujjaj, what's going through my head? Like, this kid is literally challenging Allah in front of the Kaaba. And nothing happened at the moment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not just have wisdoms for who He lets maintain a temporary hold or a temporary victory. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a wisdom for every single minute that He allows it to last. This is what distinguishes us as Muslims. وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. It's actually interesting, subhanAllah. It's one of the first things that I noted. And I tell people this, by the way, that if you read the Quran and the Seerah now, it's going to give you insights that are far greater because you're able to connect it in real time to the situation of the Ummah, maybe in a way that you were not able to before.
Yes.
Allah says to those who are dying, أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. Don't be afraid and don't grieve. Don't be afraid of what is to come, meaning they're entering into another realm. So don't be afraid of what is to come and don't grieve over that which you have lost, that which you left behind. And Allah says to those who survived, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. Don't lose heart and don't grieve. So don't grieve is a consistent message, meaning don't grieve over the losses too much to where they paralyze you. But don't lose heart. وَلَا تَهِنُوا. Don't slow down. Don't lose heart. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ قَالَ هَلَكَ النَّاسُ فَهُوَ أَهْلَكَهُم. Whoever says that the people are helpless is the most helpless of them all. And he said, مَنْ قَالَ هَلَكَ النَّاسُ فَهُوَ أَهْلَكَهُم is the one that's making them helpless. Look, if you sit around right now and you just talk about how terrible everything is, and you trash every effort that's out there, and you start attacking other Muslims that are trying to do something right, and you start attacking the efficiency of this and the efficacy of this, and and you start saying, well, this is going to fail, and this is going to fail, and this is going to fail. You might be right 80% of the time, but you missed out on 20% of the ajr, 20% of the good deeds here. Allah has promised this ummah victory. It's just about when and how.
Yeah.
And who. Right? And who. May Allah make us amongst them. Who. Right? Who's worthy of victory? Who's worthy of being granted that? May Allah make us amongst them. Allahumma ameen. So there is going to be a turning point, inshallah ta'ala. And believe it or not, people in Palestine are still hopeful. So hopelessness is not a trait of this ummah, no matter what the circumstances are. We've been in much worse times. We've come out of it. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to make us amongst the hopeful. But hurting is also sunnah.
Yes.
Feeling broken in front of Allah is also sunnah. So we hurt, we feel broken at times. We call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the du'a of al-masakin. Ya Allah, we need you. La namliku illa du'a. One of my favorite things to say in my du'a is, Allahumma ya musabbib al-asbab. La namliku lahum illa du'a. Oh Allah, you're the one who causes all means, and the only means that we seem to have is du'a. So do not let us return back empty-handed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we entrust Him with Gaza, أرضها وسماءها أطفالها ونساءها شيبها وشبابها. We entrust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with Gaza, its earth and its skies, its women and its children, its youth and its old ones. We entrust it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we just do our best. But there will be a time, inshallah ta'ala, where we will be praying in Masjid al-Aqsa and it will be free, inshallah ta'ala. We will have that time. It's just when, how, and who. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those.
Please remember to subscribe to our social media and YouTube channels, and head over to our website thinkinmuslim.com to sign up to my weekly newsletter. Jazakallah khair.